if you're going to make it a companion, you almost want that. I think at Monument, we talk a lot about having kind of unfiltered opinions. And what that really means is, we're not hamstrung by any kind of giant corporate office about, well, these are the corporate lines and we have to do it. We really work as a collaborative team at Monument. So maybe we need to figure out our own version of Monument GPT. I love that. And I think that's kind of what I'm seeing from a lot of the business leaders and executives that are going to be able to implement AI most effectively is getting a blank version of one of these kind of softwares, whether it's the GPT or any kind of bot of that kind. I think that's what they're all trying to develop when we talk about, OpenAI, DeepSeek, Google, who's ever developing these bots really want to get blank versions that they can license out to different businesses. And then you upload all your business data, you got to be aware of privacy. That's something we could talk about too, is the responsibility behind using AI. But when you upload all that data, what you're essentially doing is creating a very specific collaborator. So no longer are you going to need how-to manuals or training guides, because essentially I'll be able to log into Monument GPT, Liza GPT if you wanted to train another version of yourself, and ask it the questions. There's no more updating processes documents because it's a living, breathing thing that is guiding all the training. And I think that's kind of where then it gets into, specifically about how to use it responsibly as well. I feel like that's something that a lot is being talked about. When you look at education, that's the big field, is what is cheating, what is not, what should have to be disclosed and what not. I know, Dave, we're in a very regulated industry. I kind of feel like we have to disclose everything. And then we should definitely have to disclose when we're using AI in some form of capacity with client proposals and things like that. And, I think we do use it very kind of responsibly at Monument. We're definitely exploring with it, but I wonder what kind of is a lot of the opinions that are going to be
Yeah,
developed and what are responsible
I've been
uses
recently
for this
playing
kind of
with it too.
software.
And so a couple things you just said, we could get Monument GPT and we could load sensitive PII into it, but you've got to buy your own version that's firewalled and as protected. The PII is as protected as it is, say, in the Salesforce cloud or anywhere else. It's just so expensive right now, so it's not an option. But one of the things that so Lisa, back to what you were saying, and then Nate tagging on what you were saying, I used it the other day when I was writing a blog, and I loaded the blog up to it, and I said, argue with me about my points. And I was like, oh, well, that informed me rewriting the blog a little bit, because they asked a question kind of challenging me on something. I was like, all right, well then why don't I just take away that challenge and write it in the blog? So I've used it for that too. But Nate, what you were talking about, one of the things I did recently was I went in and said, I told it to find every single article on the SEC's marketing rule that it could find, white papers, PDFs, everything. I downloaded them all. I turned it into one PDF. I uploaded it into a new GPT project. And I said, here's my blog. Compare my blog against all of the marketing rules and regulations that the SEC has put out and all of these different opinions on what I'm writing, and come back to me and tell me what doesn't seem compliant to you about this. And I was like, wow. So if we could have this GPT at Monument, and Nate, you write a LinkedIn post, you could go into the GPT and say, like, please compliance test this for me and see what it says, and then make your edits and things like that. So that is a huge collaborative tool for us, because right now when Nate writes something, I have to read it. So it's just one Dave Armstrong saying like yes or no on something, whereas now got all of these different resources that I put into one PDF, and it's cross-referencing all of that in real time. It's amazing.